This Thursday, October 24th, NBA Betting Picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome everyone to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into our Thursday betting picks for the NBA. Eventful night in the NBA on Wednesday to kick off. I don't want to say kick off, but we had the majority of the teams in action last night. We'll briefly recap what we saw in those games. Of course, we'll get into the Thursday betting picks here in the association. But joining me here to help me break everything down happening on the hardwood, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast, MLB, of course, here on the NBA Gambling Podcast. Of course, I got my guy here with me. It's Scott Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Pretty fun overall slate for the first day of the season for a decent amount of teams in the league. However, not everybody played. So we still have a couple teams that are waiting to make their debuts. I believe you have right now 6 teams. The Wizards, the Spurs, the Mavericks, the Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Kings. So I'll see them play tonight. But overall, 10 games yesterday. Most of them, to be honest, were not too competitive. But they saved the best for last as that Clippers-Suns game went to overtime. So at least we ended the night on a high note.
Yeah, I think that was most likely the game of the night last night. I know you and I were talking off air about my Rockets just absolutely laying a complete goose egg, or not laying a goose egg, but coughing up a 18-point lead against the Charlotte Hornets. But LaMelo Ball, like you mentioned, had a really great night there for the Charlotte Hornets. 34 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists there as well. Very efficient from the floor, 10 of 20 from the floor, but was only 4 of 12 from three-point land. But I think that's kind of expected from LaMelo. Did go perfect, 10 of 10 from the free throw line as Charles Lee gets his first victory as a head coach for the Charlotte Hornets. So this might be a fun team to watch, honestly, throughout the season here. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on the Hornets, of course, going forward as well. You mentioned the Suns game last night, the most exciting one that did, like you said, Scott, went into overtime. A victory for the Phoenix Suns there, I believe it was 116-113 in overtime. That was a fun game. And also the Grizzlies and Jazz was a pretty fun one as well. But anything else kind of stuck out to you from last night that we want to cover?
Well, I was trying to think of where exactly to start because there were a lot of teams obviously playing yesterday. So to just go through some takeaways quickly. Jimmy Butler, 3 points. Yeah, he wants to play more regular season games. He might not show up for the games, but he's there, I guess, physically. But 3 points, not exactly how you want to start off the season there for Jimmy Butler. Besides that, I thought Cleveland looked great. I mean, Toronto hasn't been able to guard anybody for a year and a half. And giving up 136 in the first game's kind of just on brand for that team. A good win for New Orleans. Shout out to Vucevic, though, who made me sweat for the lock for the podcast because I had the over 10.5 rebounds. He had 2 in the first half and finished with 11. So thank you, Vucevic, for having a solid second half there. But besides that, nothing that was really that, I'd say, earth-shattering of a takeaway because, of course, it is still the first couple days of the regular season. I thought Golden State looked great. I thought Golden State got off to a bit of a slower start. Buddy Hield looked really, really good off the bench, and he ended up seeing the Warriors get the job done by 35 points. Yeah, I was really so nothing really. Once again, that was that. I'd say surprising per se. I thought the Hornets coming back and winning the way they did was kind of shocking. LaMelo was great. Props to LaMelo there. But for the most part, no. Thought there were some good performances. Obviously, some bad ones. Had to mention Jimmy Butler, though, because 3 points is kind of crazy. But either way, nice win by Orlando.
Yeah, Draymond already in midseason form, getting his first technical foul for the Golden State Warriors for the season there. So some things just haven't changed. But yeah, like you mentioned, they look really, really good to the Warriors. And I think Curry even came out and said that they're going to go 12 deep to start the season here. So we see how that works out for them. They do have a lot of depth on that team to the Warriors. And I think that maybe takes a little bit of pressure off of Steph Curry to just come in and be the guy every single night for them. But again, it was against the Portland Trailblazers, but we'll see if that works well for them going forward because we do anticipate the Portland Trailblazers being one of the worst teams in the entire association. Speaking of the Toronto Raptors, they were already injury riddled. They were missing Kelly Olynyk, RJ Barrett, and Bruce Brown last night, and then Emmanuel quickly left the game last night as well. Didn't return for them, so we'll keep an eye on that for that injury for the Toronto Raptors. But I do expect that team also to be very, very bad this season. All right, before we do get into the action here for the Thursday night games in the association, let me just quickly thank all of our listeners here on the NBA Gambling Podcast and also the WNBA Gambling Podcast as well. I know the this channel is pretty much year long because Scott and Terrell do a great job of covering the WNBA, just churning out winners, and we pretty much have, of course, the same listenership as well and the same fans. So I just want to quickly thank our listeners there. But if you could do us a favor, just head to Spotify, give us a 5-star rating for the NBA Gambling Podcast. That would definitely help us grow the show from the SGPN standpoint. But also, you can also prevent corporate gambling from taking over. So everything you guys can do for us will definitely help us out. All right, Scott, let's get into the action here for Thursday. We'll start here with the first game on the schedule. We've got the Boston Celtics, fresh off of their thrashing of the New York Knicks. They are taking on the Wizards in this game. Currently, as it stands, the Boston Celtics are a 13.5-point favorite with a total of 232 right now. Just going to pull up the injury report here quickly. Let's see. All right. So for the Boston Celtics, we know that Porzingis is going to be out for some time. Sam Hauser is also questionable here tonight. He is dealing with a lower back injury. For the Washington Wizards, they will be without Saddiq Bey and Malcolm Brogdon. Saddiq Bey is recovering from the ACL injury, and Malcolm Brogdon is also dealing with a hand injury, more so his thumb in his right hand. So those two guys will be out for the Washington Wizards. Scott, I believe you and I talked about the Southeast Division, and we just anticipated this Wizards team being one of the worst in the league here, but they are taking on the defending champs in their home opener. 13.5 is the number. What are you thinking about this game?
Volume's a little bit low, but that was the Chalk Zone theme song there. Yeah, I just think the Celtics killed this team. I feel like just looking at how this team looked in the opener, yes, they did shoot a bunch of threes. The argument is that variance maybe gets in the way. Maybe they won't hit 29 of them, but I think they'll be able to hit like, I don't know, probably 20 plus in this game in general.
Yeah.
Wizards are a horrible basketball team. I think they're the worst team in the entire league. I've said this several times. They traded away Avdia for Brogdon, and congrats, Brogdon's injured already. So you're basically just short a guy from last year. I mean, you could just read off the actual starting lineup for the Wizards for this, or the projected starting lineup for this game. Jordan Poole, Koulibaly, Kuzma, Sarr, Valanciunas. How many wins do you think that's usually worth, that 5-man starting lineup? What is that, like a 17-win team, 15-win team?
I was going to say like 14, 15.
Yeah, so I think Boston should win that game. You could argue it's a good letdown spot for the Celtics. You're not wrong. I mean, they had a shot to break the all-time single-game three-point record. Like, it's definitely a decent letdown spot. I can't back Washington. This team can't guard anybody, and they're going to be terrible. They got killed in almost every preseason game they were in, which is probably not a good sign. But I do think at the end of the day, the Celtics should win this game. If they're even somewhat engaged, they should win this game by, in my opinion, 15-plus points. So I'll go with the Celtics to get the job done in this one. And I see the volume's been raised, so I'll play the drop.
Yeah, couldn't talk you off of that here for the Boston Celtics. Again, just looked really, really good in that first game against the New York Knicks. Like you mentioned, they hit 29 3-pointers. And like we talked about in the preseason pods that we did with the division previews, just expecting this Wizards team to be at the bottom of the barrel, not only in the Eastern Conference, but the entire NBA.
You
So
saw the
until
Nets
I
yesterday,
see
though.
any type of,
They hung in there against the Hawks. They didn't look
I
that terrible. Like, the Wizards might be the worst team.
yeah, I think you could say this. Also, the Raptors. I mean, they first like 8 minutes or the first quarter, they were competitive. The Cavs were only up by one I believe at the end of the first quarter, but then after that, it was just pretty much history for the Raptors. So it could be something similar. I think that maybe the Wizards keep this game competitive, maybe the first quarter ish, and then I think just at that point with the depth that this Celtics team has, I think they just pull away at the end. And I think that last year, I know we talked a lot about how they blow double-digit leads. Maybe that's something that does correct in the second half of this team and just play 48 minutes of basketball. But yeah, I'll just lay the chalk here with the Boston Celtics minus 13 and a half. You have anything on the total 232?
It's a bit tricky because the Celtics could really score 130 in this game, and
Yeah.
nobody would be shocked at all. So I don't really have any strong opinions on the total. I'm thinking if I actually just think the Wizards are going to score in this game, or do I trust the Celtics defensively? Because the Knicks shot the ball pretty well from the floor. Knicks are expected to be a solid offense in general. So I do wonder if the Wizards in their first game are just going to be basically just met with a solid defensive game plan, because we know that Missoula and the Celtics were a solid defensive team last year. The pace, though, might be a bit crazy for this game.
Yeah.
So maybe Wizards team total under, but in reality, I don't really have any thoughts on the total.
I was looking at their team totals go over. I mean, it is a big number at 123, but of course, for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, how good the offense is supposed to be and how bad the Wizards defense would be. I would probably wait for a live number, just like you mentioned, because if they are playing with a lot of pace, are the Wizards to start this game, that at that point you maybe want to look at the over or maybe a Celtics team total over, because again, we are of course expecting some regression here from the Boston Celtics from their 3-point shooting. But even if they do, like you mentioned, walk into 20 plus 3-pointers here, they could still get over their team total here of 123 here. So that's the way I would look, would be the Boston Celtics team total over, and then wait for a live opportunity as well. Anything else for this game?
Not really. I mean, if you wanted to go for some player prop stuff, I know everybody's going to love SAR under because of what happened in the Summer League, etc. So I don't know if I want to automatically back that, but I'm not going to take his over. I'll tell you that much. Like, I think
Yeah.
SAR might have some problems, foul trouble. I don't know who he's going to guard in this game. Boston, once again, can just do a good job of spreading other teams out. They kind of run a 5-out system now. I'm wondering for the Celtics, if you do like some star players like Tatum or Brown, do you want to go for like first quarter props or anything? Because are the Celtics going to pull people in this game? They might.
Yeah.
That's kind of a problem you run into. So I do kind of expect Jaylen Brown to have a solid game. I mean, Tatum dropped 37 in game one. I am
Mm.
wondering if maybe they'll alternate a bit and Brown gets going in game two.
Yeah.
So Tatum, I don't know if he's going to take a step back, but I was impressed by, in addition to the 37 points, he had 10 assists. So I did like the actual ball movement. I thought they did a good job of getting the teammates involved. I think Jaylen Brown can have a better scoring output in this game, and I do think that he can maybe even go for like 30. But the issue you run into with this team is that if they're up by so much, they have so much depth that you can argue that a bunch of people can get minutes, and they'd still look good in this
Yeah.
game. So I don't mind like Hauser threes if he ends up playing. We'll see if he plays. Who knows? But I think Pritchard should play better. So I don't mind Pritchard potentially having a solid game.
Yeah, I was looking for Valanciunas rebounds, but I just don't see that number available right now. I think another look I did have was Drew Holiday like steals, because number one is Jordan Poole's their point guard, or a team that I think is going to have issues with turnovers this season. And we know Drew Holiday, one of the better, or if not one of the best top three defensive players or on-ball defenders and best two-way players in the league. So I think that would be a look here for me. But I'll wait for that Valanciunas number, see if it does pop up maybe closer to game time, because I just don't see it right now. All right, before we get over to the next game on the schedule here, let me tell everyone about our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has a extensive menu when it does come to their Underdog Pick'ems, because NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and much more is always available. And plus, it's Boosttober is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And with the NBA tipping off, every NBA Pick'em entry from October 19th through the October 27th will be boosted. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Stay tuned at the end of the episode. Scott and I will put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here for the Thursday card in the association. So play along with us. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, Scott, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get over to the next game on the schedule. We'll go over to the Battle of the Texas teams. The San Antonio Spurs, they are in Dallas to take on the Mavericks. Mavericks currently laying 8.5 points in this game with a total of 229. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the Spurs, we know Devin Vassell is going to be missing some time here as he recovers from a injury and surgery. For the Dallas Mavericks, Dante Exum is going to be out. He's had that surgery on his right wrist. And that is pretty much it. If you want me to mention Kessler Edwards there as well, but he's on a two-way deal with the Dallas Mavericks. But everybody else is a go for the Mavericks here. Scott, line is 8.5 in favor of the Mavericks. What are you thinking about this game?
I'm going to take the points in this one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a little bit too big. The Mavericks, I think, should be a good team, even though I was kind of selling a little bit after the deep postseason run. Maybe I'm expecting a bit of a slow start from this team. A lot of mileage from Kyrie and Luka playing in so many playoff games. We'll see how they look when the season starts. But I just think looking at this overall team, I think Dallas will be fine long term. But San Antonio, I think, is a team that I'm not exactly sold on for the course of the season. For one game, do I think they get up and keep this game close? Sure, why not? I think San Antonio is not going to be terrible. I do think you're looking at Chris Paul, who is going to help from a leadership perspective before he eventually gets hurt. But it's first game of the season, so he's going to be playing. But I do think you're looking at San Antonio being a team that can hang in there in the spot. We know Wemby's a unicorn who can definitely do basically whatever he wants on a court. We'll see how he looks from the outside shooting. But I do think that he can impact a lot of, I'd say, overall shot attempts around the rim. And it might, once again, kind of intimidate Dallas and taking a couple more contested jumpers instead of actually getting some free runs to the lane. I think San Antonio can keep this game competitive, though. I think Dallas probably they probably win the game, but 8.5 feels a bit steep to me. I'm going to go with the points here. I think that the Spurs hang in there, keep this game respectable. I think they'll lose, but I think they'll keep it within probably 6, if I had to guess. Give me a close game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the points here as well with the San Antonio Spurs. This will be a bet for me for sure here. Early in the season, I think, again, with the addition of Chris Paul, I think that he's going to keep these guys competitive, keep their heads in the game. I think at some point, maybe in the latter part of the season, where they're possibly out of contention, whether it's for a play-in tournament spot or the case might be. But I think I expect maximum effort here from the San Antonio Spurs. And again, it's a division game. It's it's a Texas rivalry game here as well between the Spurs and the Mavericks. And I think that maybe a little bit of an adjustment period. That you talked a lot about Klay Thompson last season. He had an atrocious preseason as well. That if that continues here for the for the Dallas Mavericks, and that he's not shooting the ball very well, and they're trying to force feed him, that's another possibility or a way that San Antonio Spurs keep stay in this game. I also don't think that you can say this about any team, but really, I think for this Mavericks team that can really guard or contain what Victor Wembanyama is going to be able to do against this Dallas Mavericks team here. I know you have Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, but I think Wemby should have a great game here for this San Antonio Spurs team. So, and again, we talked a lot about their perimeter defense last year for this Dallas Mavericks team. I know like Luka and Kyrie don't play a whole heck of a lot of defense. So I think that the perimeter for the San Antonio Spurs should be able to have some success in that backcourt defense or lack thereof for the Dallas Mavericks there. So plus 8.5 for me. Anything on the total here? 229.
I think I'm going to look at the under. It's probably not a strong opinion, but I do think that San Antonio offensively might not be that great. They're putting a lot of eggs in the Wemby basket. Makes sense, of course, but he can still be a little bit underwhelming from the outside. And I do wonder how many threes he's going to be taking this season. But you're looking at the rest of the supporting cast. Do you like the offense? And you have Chris Paul or Trey Jones at point guard, who at this stage in Chris Paul's career isn't exactly that big of a threat off the dribble. He can get to his spots, hit some mid-range jumpers, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
besides that, you have Harrison Barnes, who I love. Just kidding. Not one of my
You're
favorite players of
you're
all
going to
time.
be glued to this game. Your two favorite players are in this game.
That is true. Shout out to Dimwitty. But I do think looking at this matchup, I just don't exactly see many great weapons for the Spurs, especially with Vassell being out. So I do question if the offensive output's going to be that impressive. Dallas defensively was still very solid when they made the Gafford trade, and that kind of helped turn their season around.
Yeah.
So I do think that defensively, Dallas should look fine. I think Wemby will impact a bunch of shots. If Dallas gets hot from three, they get hot from three.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's the framework in place for both defenses to actually look pretty good in this game. I'll go with the under. It's the first game for both teams. Maybe some rust plays a factor. A little bit of, I'd say, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Maybe just a little bit of like a lackluster appearance for both teams offensively, which we kind of saw for a lot of these teams in their season opener.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the under here. It just feels a bit high. 230. It's a lot of points to get to in a first game. I'll go with the under. Give me some game in the low 220s.
Yeah, also like pace, right? Like when you add Chris Paul to this team, and I mean, we don't know how many minutes he's going to play. I'm guessing maybe around 20, in between 20 and
He's
25.
probably not sprinting all the way down.
Yeah, and he's going to be a guy that wants to set up that half court offense. And same thing with Luka and the Dallas Mavericks. Like they don't, with Luka's on the floor, and we noticed this a lot last year that when Luka was on the floor, the pace was substantially slower when he was off the floor. For this Dallas Mavericks team. So, if there's going to be cold shooting in this game and the pace is not going to be there, I mean, that just bodes very well for the total at to go under in this game. So I'm with you on the under here as well. Any player props you're looking at here, Scott?
So I saw somebody mention Wemby rebounds. I don't mind that. I mean, Wemby should have a solid game in general.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I wanted to go for Chris Paul assists or not, because I really don't know what the expected minutes are going to be.
Right.
I'm assuming based on preseason, probably somewhere around 25, if I had to guess that myself. So I am kind of wondering if I want it, but it's at 7.5. That's a lot of assists for a guy that's probably playing 25 minutes. And it's juiced at 7.5, which is kind of annoying. I might want Chris Paul under turnovers, actually, at 1.5.
Okay.
It's even money. I don't hate it. I mean, Dallas defensively last year was pretty average at actually forcing turnovers. I do think that Chris Paul is going to have a pretty solid game, at least to start the season. We'll see if he runs out of gas, season goes on. But his points are at 10.5. I like the under on that. I think Chris Paul will be a pass-first point guard on this team. Yes, he can find some openings with the pick-and-roll game to potentially get to the mid-range, but I don't see him attempting many free throws this season, just based on his lack of explosiveness at this stage in his career getting the rim. I think that Dallas can defend him relatively well, but in the preseason, Chris Paul didn't exactly light it up scoring-wise. 10.5 feels a bit large to me for Chris Paul. I'll go with the under.
Yeah, I want to see what the minutes are going to look like for Chris Paul, right? Because a lot of things that we mentioned on getting up there in age, and you still have Trey Jones in that back court there as well. I was just looking at Wemby's numbers last season against the Dallas Mavericks. It's just from a rebounding perspective. 23 minutes, 5 rebounds, 27 minutes, 9 rebounds, 32 minutes, 11 rebounds. So if he's out there 30 plus minutes, I think he definitely gets into the realm of 10 plus rebounds. His number's at 10.5 right now. If you want to look at steals and blocks to go over, that's at 5.5 right now for Wemby. I mean, he could walk into 5 blocks, and obviously with his wingspan there, you can deflect some passes and get steals that way as well. So I think that would be worth a look here as well. Anything else for Spurs Mavericks here, Scott?
Yeah, just one more thing. I do find it pretty funny that Shaq put Clay in his top 50 of NBA players this season, and I'm not sure he's better than Buddy Hield. So I'll end it on that note.
Yeah, I think I think that's something to keep an eye on this season is, and I wish there was like a head-to-head prop on this, like who makes more 3-pointers or like points per game between Buddy Hield and Klay Thompson.
I'm not saying Buddy's going to go for 20 per game, obviously. I'm just saying top 50 for Shaq isn't going to help the casual allegations.
Yeah. All right, let's get over to the game of the night. I think in a lot of people's opinions here, a division game between the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are in Mile High City to take on the Denver Nuggets. Currently, as it stands, the Denver Nuggets are a 2-point home favorite in this game, with a total of 227.5. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, we know about Isaiah Hartenstein. He'll be missing about another 4 to 6 weeks here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jalen Williams, not the starter, but the other one, is going to be out for this game as well. And then Kenrich Williams is also going to be out for the OKC Thunder. For the Denver Nuggets, pretty clean injury report. Nobody's on there right now for them. So they are really healthy coming into the season here. Denver laying 2 points at home, hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder here. Scott, what are you thinking about this game?
I think even though Denver's at home, I am going to go OKC in the spot. I'm really just not that high on Denver. I know I didn't actually cover this team in the division breakdown series, but I don't think they had a good offseason at all. In fact, I thought their offseason kind of sucked. So I know Westbrook's there now. We'll see if he can provide a spark. He's not Reggie Jackson. That's a step in the right direction. But the whole team just comes down to Jamal Murray. If you think that he's actually healthy or what version we're going to get, because in the preseason, he kind of sucked. And kind of generous, he was awful for the entire preseason. He was bad in the Olympics. He has had a mess of the last couple months. So nobody knows how healthy he actually is. And with Murray being, let's just say, untrustworthy at this point in time, Porter Jr. has been fine. We'll see how he does there. They paid Gordon a bunch of money, but they lost Caldwell Pope. And now you're promoting Braun, who I don't think is as good of a three-point shooter, nearly as good of a three-point shooter as Caldwell Pope. So I really hated Denver's offseason. I just did not like what they did at all. OKC basically kept the team intact while getting Hartenstein, who's not going to play in this game. But OKC was good against this team last year. They looked pretty sharp, and I do think that Shea is a matchup problem for this Denver team. But it mostly comes down to the offense for Denver, because if Jokic is going to be by himself out there, basically, Porter Jr. we know can shoot threes. Does he create his own offense? Not really. He's mostly a three-point shooter coming off screens. If Murray's not going to look like all-star form, then I really think this team's got serious issues for the entire season. So I would have liked Denver's win total under with the uncertainty with that. I think OKC is still going to win 50, 60 games. So give me OKC, who played well against this team last year. They matched up well. They're well coached, and they have a decent amount of scoring options on this team. Give me OKC for scoring depth purposes.
Yeah, and I think that when we talked about this this Denver Nuggets team, that their depth just gets thinner and thinner as each season progresses, as they get removed from that championship that they won a few seasons ago, right? We talked about Bruce Brown, now no longer with that team, obviously, and they lost KCP in this offseason here as well. So you're really then relying on, like you mentioned, what seems like a injured Jamal Murray that's still dealing with that knee issue. And there's a lot of love for this OKC Thunder team coming into this year, and rightfully so, right? Because they added some great pieces in the offseason. Obviously, with Isaiah Hartenstein there, I know he's going to be missing a couple of more weeks here with the hand injury. But I think what you mentioned about Shea just being an absolute problem for this Denver Nuggets team, but also, I mean, the rest of the league as well, because we saw he had an MVP caliber year last year. And I think a lot of people, I think, are 100% correct that he did deserve to win the MVP last year, but that's here. You hear no there, but you take a look at the 4 matchups last season between these two teams, like you mentioned, Scott, that the Thunder won 3 out of those 4 games, and all 4 games ended up going under the total as well. It was 4-0 to the under. I think this is, again, I feel like this is going to be a game where the Oklahoma City Thunder picked up right where they left off. It's an early season divisional matchup for this Thunder team. At plus money, I really couldn't pass it up here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I feel like when Nikola Jokic comes off that court, they just get very, very limited to the Denver Nuggets. And we'll see what Russell Westbrook's able to do, obviously, coming off of the bench for this Denver Nuggets team. But I think just the depth, and especially the defenders that this Oklahoma City Thunder team has. I mean, with Lou Dort and Alex Caruso, we know SGA can play defense as well. I mean, that's just going to be very tough matchups for not only Denver tonight, but obviously going forward for this Thunder team. So I like the Thunder here, plus the 2 money line here as well. Total 227.5. Scott, like I mentioned, all 4 games ended up going under the total last season. And I'll quickly read off the final scores from last year. So we had 105, 100, 119, 93. One game did get over the posted total right now, which was 118, 117. And then the very first game last season ended up 128, 95 in a thrashing by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Sorry, by the Denver Nuggets in that game. But I'm on the under here. What are your thoughts?
I'm on the under too. I mean, you mentioned the numbers last season in the head-to-head meetings. Most of them were low scoring. I think that Denver offensively might struggle against this team defensively, even though Hartenstein's not playing. Murray was great the last preseason game. Didn't really do anything for the first 3. So I am wondering what version of Murray we're going to get, so which
Yeah.
does concern me. But I'm going to go under. I think that both teams defensively should be fine. Denver, you always have to wonder about pace, because you're looking at a Joker who's going to run the offense, and that's mostly a half-court system that might kill some of the pace in this game. So I'll go with the under in this one. Give me something in the low 220s.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Any player props you're looking at?
For player props, I got to like Shea in general. Thought about Shea being the leading scorer in this game, which I saw available at like minus 130, I think. I think that has some value. Last year in the meetings, he was pretty good when it comes to leading in points. I just want to quickly see how he did in the head-to-head. So last 2 games against the Nuggets last year, he had 34 points and 40.
Yeah.
So he torched this team. He's at 29.5. We know Shea is the standard Mr. 31, Mr. 32 points per game man. So expect a lot of 31 and 32s from him throughout the course of the season. Memes aside, though, I see him getting to 30 in this game. I'll go with the over on that one. I am wondering for Denver, though, do I want Westbrook in his first game or not? Because I do think he'll have some success, especially as a cutter against Joker when they play together. So I am wondering if it's a decent buy low spot for Westbrook. I wonder if his numbers are based more on his numbers last season and the seasons prior, where he's been kind of underwhelming. He's at 9.5, which I think for the Nuggets, he's a great fit. Maybe he's not going to help him win many games, but I do think that for the sake of his own stats, him and Joker together, him off ball cutting actually does have some value with his energy. So I find Westbrook intriguing, but I kind of want to see him play a game or 2 before I jump on board. But at first glance, I think Westbrook at 9.5 has some, I'd say, merit towards the over if you do think he'll be a successful cutter off ball with Joker.
Yeah, I was looking at his PRA for the game for Russell Westbrook, because we know obviously he rebounds the basketball. He's going to get his teammates involved, and obviously leading that second group off the bench for the Denver Nuggets. And who knows, maybe even possibly be in that group for to close out a game. We've seen crazier things happen, but 17 and a half is PRA right now. I get it. It's the first game. We don't know how many minutes he's going to be out there. Coming up to a new team. And again, these coaches right now are, still kind of figuring out there's rotations for the first week or so here, maybe even beyond that. But 17 and a half, I think that's a little bit low for Russell Westbrook. Jokic rebounds, especially without Isaiah Hartenstein there, lacking some, rim protection and big bodies in there to rebound. Obviously, I know you have Chet there, but 12 and a half for Nikola Jokic. I mean, it's definitely in the realm of possibility. Has only done it once in the last 4 meetings, which was all last season. He only went over this number of 12 and a half just once, where he had 14 rebounds in that second game. From that, it was 10, 6, and 10. So I'll keep an eye out for that on Nikola Jokic rebounds. 12 and a half is just, if it was 11, it feels a little bit rich to me for his rebounds in this game. Anything else for this game?
Yeah, I thought about Chet actually, because Chet in the head-to-head was really good against Denver. In fact, he had 17 plus points in all 4 games against them last season. So Chet's been solid against this team. We know Denver defensively, the main issue people have with Joker is his, I'd say, defensive effectiveness. Let's put it that way. In other words, people think he's not a very good defender. I think Chet is a decent matchup, though, and you're looking at Hardenstein not being there, which should open up more room for Chet to operate. So I think it's a decent Chet spot.
Yeah, couldn't talk you off. They're going to need him this season, honestly, just to literally take that next step forward. To really be that second scorer next to SGA in this on this team here. So definitely, hopefully, he stays healthy for this Thunder team and can really take that next step up for this Thunder team as well. Christian asking, I said Westbrook over PRA 17.5. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Let me double check unless I misquoted it, but let me check here real quick again. Looking at it on DraftKings. Yeah,
Do we
points,
count this as
rebounds,
a
and
revenge
assists.
game, or are we too far removed from his Thunder tenure?
I think we're probably too far removed from that.
I hear that every time, by the way. It's like, oh, it's a revenge game. It's like, yeah, Dennis Schroeder had a revenge game against the Hawks yesterday. Like, he hasn't played on the Hawks in like 5. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I don't buy any of that. Unless there
Yeah,
was a really bad breakup. If there was a bad breakup, then maybe. But no, the Thunder love Westbrook, so I don't see any revenge factor there.
yeah, that was more a agreed upon like departure, right?
Yeah,
Like for Westbrook, I think it was the trade.
Westbrook's probably the
Uh,
most beloved Thunder player, like in the history
yeah,
of the franchise.
yeah. So yeah, maybe not that revenge angle anymore here for one Russell Westbrook. All right, before we get over to the last game of the Thursday card here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS. They've been around for more than 30 years, and you can easily deposit using cryptocurrency, and you can get lightning fast payouts as well. US players are always welcome with BetUS, and BetUS is live with Trick or Treat on Horror Street. From now until Halloween, BetUS will be offering daily promotions and a raffle entry to win a sports or casino prize pack that they will give away on October 31st. You can enter multiple times, and every $200 you deposit at BetUS gets you one entry. Again, trick or treat on Horror Street from now until Halloween. BetUS will be offering daily promotions and a raffle entry to win a sports or casino prize pack that they will give away on Halloween on October 31st. And you can enter multiple times. And every time you deposit $200 into BetUS, you get one entry. So go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS, promo code SGPN. So they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me. And Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And don't forget, Rhythm's NBA models are now live on their app for this season. So make sure you check them out there. Just take a looking at the predictions tonight for the Boston Celtics in the Washington Wizards game. The Rhythm actually has a 19% chance for the Washington Wizards to win that game. But looking at some of their props for tonight, they do like Julius Randle under 7.5 rebounds. Rhythm is predicting that he'll only have 5 rebounds in this game. Nice plus odds there if you're able to shop around plus 106 under 7.5 rebounds for Julius Randle from Bet Rhythm. All right, Scott, let's get to the final game of the night here. We've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are in Sacramento, to take on the Kings. Currently, the Timberwolves are laying 1 point on the road here with a total of 221. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, let's start here with Sacramento Kings. Pretty clean injury report. Nobody of significance, only Devin Carter and Orlando Robinson. But again, into the bench guys there. Not much here for the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. They are healthy coming into this game against the Sacramento Kings. Minnesota laying a point on the road here. Scott, what are your thoughts on Wolves and the Kings?
Yeah, I'm going to light the beam for this game. Now, the Timberwolves, I said in the offseason, I was asked about the Cat trade. I still think long-term, I understand what Minnesota was doing. However, I did also point out Minnesota would be worse this season, obviously, than they were last year. And we saw them look a bit underwhelming in the first game. Not a total shock there, trying to acclimate Randall. I think he played one preseason game with that team, so I'm not exactly shocked the chemistry didn't exactly look on point for that one. But Yeah, I didn't think Minnesota looked that good. I thought the spacing was a bit off. It just seemed like the rotations were also a bit shaky, and they're going to have to work it out. So Minnesota's laying points on the road here. It is the Kings' first game of the season. They're at home, though. Solid crowd atmosphere. At least that's what we're expecting. But Minnesota, based on watching them play in that first game, really wasn't too impressed. And I thought offensively it was pretty ugly at times.
Yeah.
The Kings,
Yeah.
if they can do one thing, it's score a bunch of points. So I just don't think Minnesota will keep up with the current overall, I'd say, landscape of this team right now, at least based on how the minutes rotations are going to be broken down, how the offensive sets are going to be broken down. Just looked a little bit, I'd say, I don't want to say clogged, but I feel it's a decent way to describe it. It just felt like
Sure.
the spacing wasn't as solid or as determined as I'd like. And I feel like that's going to be an issue that'll last a couple weeks. When you're against a team that can score a bunch of points and your offense is, I'd say, a little bit shaky at this point in time, let's put it that
Yeah.
way, I have a hard time laying on the road here. Give me Sacramento at home.
Yeah. I think for this Wolves team, until they kind of figure out who that consistent second scorer is going to be next to Anthony Edwards, I think that's what's really going to set this team back right now. I think we saw that obviously in that first game against the LA Lakers, but Lakers did a great job defensively against the Minnesota Timberwolves there as well. I think this may also come to a point where teams may start double teaming Anthony Edwards and saying, "Hey, let somebody else beat us," or on the contrary, you can look at, "Hey, play solid defense against everybody else. And if Anthony Edwards goes off, he goes off, but we're still going to be able to find ways to win games if there's just one scorer out there that's going to be consistent for this Minnesota Timberwolves team." But I mean, look at the Sacramento side here. I mean, with the addition of DeMar DeRozan, I think that's just absolutely fantastic for this team. Gives them a guy in the mid-range that can knock down those shots, get to the basket, get to the free throw line next to De'Aaron Fox, and obviously Sabonis and the depth that they do have for the Sacramento Kings. Obviously, I think this team is a little bit more well-rounded offensively are the Sacramento Kings. We'll see what they're able to do defensively because they did struggle a little bit last year on that side of the basketball, where we know for this Minnesota Timberwolves team that they're going to have to play solid defense if they want to win games, because they are right now, at least early in the part of the season, are limited on the offensive side here. But Sacramento at home catching a point, I think is, like you mentioned, a great spot for them here. So I do like them to step up in the spot here. And I was watching a lot of the Sacramento Kings preseason games. Mike Brown was letting his starters be out there for a good amount of minutes. It was around 20, 22 minutes for the starters. I guess really just kind of building that continuity and chemistry with DeMar DeRozan now in that starting lineup for this Sacramento Kings team. So I think that's only going to help them not only early part of the season, but as the season progresses here as well. So Kings for me as well on the money line. Total 221 here, Scott. Any thoughts on that?
Even though Minnesota's offense wasn't great in the first game, and I am being generous, it was really not that good, I think I'm still going over. I just expect the Kings to force pace. It's what they always do. I think offensively they'll be fine. Defensively, no, they're a mess every year. So I'll go with the over in this game. Just feels, I don't know if it's an overreaction, if that's the right word or not, but I just expect, because the Lakers play at a slow pace anyway, because if you got AD, you got LeBron, they're going to kind of walk it up a bit more. I see the Kings just running. So I like the over in this game. I think this total's a bit low. I find it a bit weird, for example, that you have a game between the Spurs and the Mavericks at like 2:30, and this game's 2:21. I think that's a little bit low. I'll go with the over.
Yeah, I think it's, you nailed it, that when you mentioned that Kings will force pace, and that's kind of been their MO.
That's how they play.
Yeah, that's just their style of basketball. So I mean, if you want to look at a Kings team total over, I don't think that's a bad look in this game. Again, I just really like their starting lineup. I think if Keegan Murray's going to be able to be a consistent 3-point shooter around Fox, Sabonis, and DeRozan, that's going to be great for them. You have Malik Monk coming off of the bench for this team as well. So I would look at their team total to go over, but I agree about the full game over with you there as well. Any player props you like in this game?
I feel like you got to target Sabonis. I mean, I know that he's not Anthony Davis, but the point is Davis had a monster offensive game, and I do think I think that Gobert might struggle in this matchup. So I don't mind Sabonis having a solid game in general. Not sure if I want to go for PRA, maybe just RA if you want to toss the points out. He has been good historically, though, against this team. Sabonis in the last 2 games had a triple-double, and he had 21, 15, and 8. So he's had 2 really good games if you want to just look at the actual numbers he's had against this team. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Sabonis RA at 19.5, I find quite appealing. I think the rebounds could be there. His rebounds are at 12.5. I don't mind Sabonis RA here. I think he could be flirting with a triple-double in this game.
Yeah. Sabonis rebounds, I can never talk you off of. He's been absolutely fantastic rebounding the basketball, not only when he joined the the Kings here, but obviously all throughout his career. Trying to put up the exact numbers from last season for Sabonis. Let's see here.
For the record, by the way, Gobert's also done very well against Sabonis, so both of them kind of just put up massive numbers against each other. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I think Rudy Gobert rebounds would be the look. I feel like that for Julius Randle until like they really integrate him, and I think Coach Chris Finch is comfortable having him out there for extensive amount of minutes. I think Gobert's just going to eat on the boards. I think what was it? He had 15 rebounds in the first game, if I'm not mistaken, 14 against the Lakers. But I think it's a good opportunity for Gobert to again just continue grabbing the rebounds, giving him that rim protection. I'm trying to pull up the numbers from last season for Rudy Gobert against the Kings. So 3 games last season, 11 rebounds, 17 rebounds, and 16 rebounds. So if he's going to play about, it seems like that magic number for him is about 35 plus minutes, that he'll be able to grab those rebounds for the Minnesota Timberwolves here. So yeah, I like that as well.
I got to at least talk about Gobert rebounds in particular because it's at 13.5 at even money. Randall, rebounding wise, had 9 in the first game, so if you want to factor that in. But last 2 games against the Kings, Gobert has had 16 plus rebounds.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good spot for Gobert to put up some numbers.
All right. Anything else for this game?
Yeah, I feel like if I was going to make a case, I do want to ask if you think that either Ant has a monster game or if you think that Minnesota gets some contributions from some other guys. But I know Naz Reid got there with a 1.5 3. Shout out to the banked-in three-pointer from the top of the key on his first attempt. Actually, I know it was a play that we liked on the Mothership Show, and that got there. I'm trying to wonder if I want to go back to it or not. But if you want to look at the actual head-to-head, DeRozan's been really good against this team. DeRozan's points line's at 19.5. Yes, I know that his usage might be a little bit less than it was in Chicago. He's at 27 points and at least 27 points in 2 straight against Minnesota. They can't really guard him. Like, I think it's a good spot for DeRozan. That's a very low number. Yes, I know that it's his official Kings debut. He looked fine in the preseason. 19.5, though, when he's, historically speaking, done very well against this team. I think there's some value on that. I don't mind DeRozan over his points.
Yeah, and I think the hesitation that I have, like when you have these like caliber players on new teams, is I kind of want to get a feel out first, and see how they look and like
the overall,
what the
just chemistry with the team. I get it.
Yeah. So I mean, I couldn't talk you off, but it's like it's low. We know DeMar DeRozan, he's a scorer. He can again do it from all 3 levels. I know the 3-point shooting really isn't been his MO throughout his career, but it's a guy that can get to the basket, get to the free throw line. I mean, 10 plus times. So I think I couldn't talk you off for the 19.5. Mentioned Naz Reid. It took a little bit for us to get there with him last game against the Lakers. The fact that just makes me nervous is that now you have Dante and Naz Reid coming off the bench together, and I don't remember the last time I've seen Dante Knight like a shot where he hasn't jacked it up from beyond the arc. So if you want to look at maybe Dante's 3-pointers, that number's probably at 2.5 again, if I'm not mistaken. But let's see here quickly. Dante's at 2.5 at plus 114. I know he's going to get the attempts up, but it's just the fact that is he going to be able to make them is a question as well. Naz Reid threes right now are at 1.5 minus 130 towards the over. I might just start looking at his points because last game against the Lakers, there was a lot of points where he was attacking the basket and trying to get those layups and dunks and trying to get to the free throw line. His number is at 12.5. I don't like it at that number, but I think what you mentioned about DeMar 19.5, I think that's definitely worth a look here. Yeah, that's all I got for this game. You got anything else?
I see one more.
Sure.
Mike Conley rebounds at 2.5. The over's plus 140. He's gone over in actually 7 of the last 8 games in general. And against the Kings, he has gone over in 3 straight. So Plus 140, he had 4 against the Lakers in the first game of the season. It's mostly a usage thing. I get that Sabonis and Gobert are going to kill each other for rebounds. Like, I get it. But, I mean, historically speaking, if you go over this number and your line's 2.5 at plus 140, I'll take a flyer. I think plus 140's got value. I'll take that.
I was looking at, I mean, the numbers are backing up there, like you mentioned, for him. Looking at Malik Monk, his points are at 12.5. I know he's going to play 25 plus minutes. The last 2 games against the Timberwolves last season, 17 points, and he had a game where he had 39 points, but I'm pretty sure there was probably a starter missing in that game. But prior to that, 22, 13, 13, 19, 8, 12. So he's gone over this number in, what was that, 5 out of the last 7 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think that's something I'll dig a little bit more into for Malik Monk. That 12.5, it is juiced to minus 125 towards the over, but I think that's going to be worth a look here for me for his player prop in this game. All right, Scott, let's get into our lock and dog here for tonight for the Thursday card, and then we'll put together our Underdog Fantasy entry. You want to lead us off?
Sure. So for the lock, I'm trying to think if I want to go for a prop or maybe a side or a total. I don't mind the under in that Spurs game, so I was kind of intrigued by it, but a part of me just wants to take the Celtics. Like, a part of me just thinks that the Wizards are going to get absolutely destroyed because I think that they're going to be a god-awful team. 13.5 on the road, though, is a lot in the NBA. So I'm trying to think if I actually want to do that for my lock. I think I do. Like, I'm looking at that Wizards starting lineup, and that team just screams 14 wins. I'll go with Boston. I'll lay it at 13.5. I get it. It's a lot of points. It's going to intimidate some people. But then you're going to look up, and Boston's going to be up 20. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I just don't see many worlds the Wizards keep this game close because defensively they can't guard anybody. Offensively, they don't have many actual, I'd say, shot makers or just offensive creators on this team. You got Poole, who worst case scenario can create. Some bad looks most of the time, but he still can create. And you're just going down the actual starting lineup, and like, Kuzma's been a bit banged up. He'll play. Koulibaly's a work in progress offensively. I don't know what the hell Sarr's going to be. I don't know if I want to know. And you got Valanciunas, who's going to get killed on the 3-point spacing that the Celtics have. So it's just a bad matchup as far as I'm concerned. I think Boston scores enough to cover. I think defensively they'll look good as well. Give me Boston, minus a 13.5 as my lock. For my dog, you know what? I think I am going to go to that last play that I mentioned. Give me Mike Conley over 2.5 rebounds at plus 140. I like the price. He's done well in the head-to-head. He has gone over this number in 17 of the last 19 games in general. So he has been pretty good at getting to 3 or 4. 2.5 is pretty low. I'll go with the player prop as my dog. Give me Conley over 2.5 rebounds at plus 140.
All right. All right, for my lock, it's going to be, it's either the Kings or the Thunder here tonight. Let's go with the Sacramento Kings plus the 1 at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, they've been an absolutely great team at home. I'll play the money line at minus 102. I think they get the outright win. Sacramento, I mean, look, the addition of DeMar DeRozan, I think is going to be huge for this team. Really, they still have that continuity with this team. I mean, when you talk about the core, I know we talked a lot about DeMar DeRozan being added, but De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray. So the core is still intact. Obviously, having a guy like DeMar is only going to help them with their scoring output. It gives, I think, Mike Brown a lot of flexibility. We talked a lot about Minnesota. Right now, it's a one-trick pony with Anthony Edwards, trying to find who that second score is going to be. Obviously, it's supposed to be Julius Randle, but he's still trying to find his way within the grand scheme of things with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I like the Kings in this spot. Money line minus 102 for my lock. For my dog, I think it's going to be like a player double and like Thunder money line, like Shea
30, just call it a day.
Yeah, Shea 30 and like money line with the Thunder. I think that'll get you some nice odds here. Let me see if I can quickly find the exact odds for that. So we'll go money line Thunder, and let's see, where is SGA points? 30 plus is minus 145. That'll get you to plus 204. So Shea, 30 plus points, and Thunder Moneyline plus 204 as my dog here tonight for the Thursday card. So there we go. All right. Yeah, if you're in the chat as well, drop your lock and dogs or leave a comment if you're watching after we're done live. Or I think I want to see what you guys are on here tonight as well. So share your thoughts as well. Scott, let's put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight. Where you want to start?
I'm trying to think of where exactly I want to go here. Anybody you want to start with? Because I feel like I'm automatically gravitating back to Shea. So that's why I'm wondering if there's any players you like really want in the entry.
Yeah, it's so already I'll throw Shea in there already. I mean, I'm not gonna talk. We're not gonna talk well, so we'll start with Shea there. You want to go like Gobert rebounds or Sabonis rebounds or Wemby rebounds? I like all
we'll
three.
Go with Gobert because if he doesn't get there, then I never take him for the rest of the season.
Did we do this last year as well?
Correct.
At the beginning?
I said I was going to do it with Vucevic in the first game of the season because he was another guy on the list. The only person who I haven't really considered yet is Bam. Bam's another guy, but Vucevic redeemed himself with 9 rebounds in the second half, so I can take Vucevic again. So we'll try this out. Once again, every new season, I'm willing to kind of wipe the slate clean for one game on players that I wrote on the banned list. And if they lose, then I just don't bet them again for the rest of the year. So we'll try Gobert out. Why not? We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, all right. We'll throw Gobert in there. So 13 and a half rebounds. We'll take the higher on that. Then we'll go higher on SGA. You want to get anything from the Wizards Celtics game, or we just think it's going to be a blowout that may go to die?
If you want to be an absolute hater, do you want to go with Sar lower on his points?
Let's see what it's at, or even if they.
He's listed as a potential starter, so they should have lines on him.
Let's see. Sar. I typed in Sar. I don't. The only star that comes up is Dario Saric, but so yeah, they don't. Underdog unfortunately does not have Alex Sar.
Okay, so it's going to be a bit tricky there. Do they have Poole turnovers?
Jordan Poole. They do not.
Okay. I thought I'd get a little bit creative there.
You go like Tatum rebounds or assist.
I don't mind Tatum assists.
It's at 5.5.
It's pretty low. He had 10 last game against the Knicks. I think that, once again, if I'm expecting Jaylen Brown to have a better game, maybe they alternate. Tatum did a good job of getting his teammates involved, so I don't mind Tatum assists.
All right, we'll do that. We'll go higher on his assist there. And again, don't forget, guys, if you are on Underdog Fantasy, make sure you use that profit boost that they're offering till October 27th on all entries for the NBA. So our entry here for tonight for the NBA on Thursday, we're going to go SGA higher, 30.5 points. Rudy Gobert higher, 12.5 rebounds. And then we'll go Jason Tatum higher, 5.5 assists. If you don't use a profit boost, that will be a 5.13x entry. So every $10 that you do put in, you'll see a return of $51.30 if all three of those do go over their or go higher on their projections, I should say, for the entry here tonight. All right, and that is going to wrap it up here for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. Feels good to be back. The chat was really active, so appreciate everybody here in the chat that joins us. Again, if you are watching this live later on, drop your lock and dog into the comment section. Would love to see what you guys are on as well. But this has been a lot of fun here, of course, and we'll be here Monday through Friday for the NBA Gambling Podcast. Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Not really. Once again, we're going to have an episode tomorrow, so if you do want an NBA episode with more games, then check out the episode for tomorrow. Besides that, though, not many games today, but they should be fun, so looking forward to the games there. Besides that, I have a tennis podcast coming out later. I know we're doing baseball as well.
Yeah.
We got a World Series thing to do, so a lot of podcasts, but once again, a lot of content, good time of the year with the World Series going on, basketball starting up, you have college football, the NFL, you know the drill. So check out all the podcasts on the network.
Yeah, 100%. Again, just make sure you guys either download the app or make sure you are subscribed to all the different pods across the network here. We are in that sports equinox right now where we have so much going on right now. So more content for our listeners. Make sure you guys follow Scott over on the Twitter machine at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. And more importantly, if you guys could do us a favor, smash that like button on the stream here and subscribe to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel if you haven't already. And you can also follow us on Twitter at SGPNNBA. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Same place, same time. So look out for us then. Till then, enjoy the games here tonight, and we'll talk to you guys down the road. And always remember to let it ride.